Alrighty, want to say welcome everybody and good evening. Welcome to tonight's AB 617 South Sacramento Florence Steering Committee meeting. I just want to let everybody know this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the district's website and YouTube. With that, I will pass it to the co-leads.
Good afternoon, everyone. And as always, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us today. We will do a quick roll call of committee members. Bishop Baker.
Here.
Gary Johansson.
Here.
Patricia Shelby.
Oh, yes, I'm here.
Rhonda.
Here.
Stephanie Williams. Tito.
Yes, sir. Physically, emotionally, virtually. Yes, sir.
Oh
Here.
boy, there you go. Mr. Valdez. Jesus Cervantes. Ian Chan.
Here I am.
Mr. John Rice. He said he was going to be calling in, so he may be en route. Steve Blanton.
I'm here.
And Bill Knowlton is here. So we do have a quorum. So we will send it over to Mariana, district staff.
Yes, all right, district staff roll call. Dr. Alberto Ayala.
Here, thank you.
Mark Latzenheiser.
Here, thank you.
Jaime Lemus.
I'm here. Good evening, everybody.
Janice Lam Snyder.
I'm here. Good evening.
David Yang.
Here.
And myself, I am here. All right, CARB staff, Karen Buckley.
Here. Good to see everybody.
And Jennifer Magana.
Here.
And facilitator Ariel Ambrister.
I'm here.
And our guest speaker, Patrick Guild.
Here, thank you.
And that is it for roll call.
Ariel, you want to?
So I will quickly go over the agenda. We will pop up the agenda slide. Okay, so we've got a quick district update and then an AB 617 budget update. From there, we'll shift to talking about outreach and looking at options and what the group would like to do on outreach. And then we will have a sharing of the wildfire outreach, what the district has been developing with partners on that. And then we will shift to new business, future agenda topics. We'll make time for any general public comments and adjourn at 8 p.m. And just a quick reminder on your new code of conduct. So let's see, here we are. So the members of the steering committee agreed to treat everyone with courtesy and respect, avoid personally attacking or demeaning anyone, avoid interrupting others who have the floor, disrupting or delaying the meeting. And we ask they strive to be fair and unbiased towards each other, the public and the district, to value each other's time and respect each other's opportunity to speak, to strive to reach consensus and look for those commonalities, but agree to disagree if need be, listen courteously and attentively to the public, and strive to hold each other accountable to the code of conduct. And with that, I will be tracking your action items and your parking lot items, anything that you raise for later agenda items. And with that, I will shift it to Marina.
Hello again. Okay, I will run through some logistics for anyone who's new here or new to Zoom. We have staff available. If you have any technology issues, just send an email to the email listed here, ab617clerk@airquality.org, and someone will contact you. You can also message the host and co-host in the message box if you're having any technical difficulties. For agenda items with steering committee discussion, the co-leads will announce the format of that discussion. So if it's round robin, the co-leads will call upon each member one by one to speak. And then after everyone has spoken, then you are welcome to please raise your virtual hand if you have any additional comments. For the public comment period, and any discussion that is not round robin, if you would like to speak, same thing, please just raise your virtual hand. And in order to do so, it'll depend on the version of Zoom you have. If you're on the computer, you can either click on the participant icon at the bottom of your screen and you'll get a panel pop up with all the participants. You should see a raise hand button. If you have a newer version of Zoom, you'll get the reactions button and select raise hand. And if you're on the phone, press *9 and you will hear an automatic voice saying that your hand is raised and to wait to be called upon. When you are called upon, please unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon on the lower left if you're on the computer. And if you're on the phone, press *6. If you're using both the computer and telephone, you might have to unmute yourself on both. You can also email any comments to that same email, ab617clerk@airquality.org, during the public comment period, and we'll read it out loud to everybody. And a reminder for steering committee members, it is appreciated but not required to have your camera turned on, especially if you have any privacy concerns about your home being viewed publicly. The meetings are recorded and posted online. So if you have any concerns about that, and that is all of our Zoom logistics. I'll pass it to the co-leads.
All right, we have the minutes or notes from our last meeting in your packet. We would entertain a motion to accept those meeting notes.
So moved.
Who do we have?
I was one of them. This is Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Bishop. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any abstention for absence? Motion carries. Back to you, Marina. Or I guess, Janice, I guess.
Yeah. So just a reminder for anyone who hasn't turned in their annual documents, required documents, for us to do that. And so we'll make sure to file those away appropriately. And then the second topic that I have was to share with the steering committee and to do a little bit of a prep that we are going to be talking about the phase 3 monitoring locations at the next meeting. And so as you recall, in the last meeting, we had brought back some information, and there was there were some comments brought from the steering committee members. So we'll be bringing some information back as well in preparation for that discussion. We did receive a few questions from a steering committee member, and so we'll be going over those during the July meeting as well. Okay. With that, I will pass it over to Alberto to talk about the budget.
Thank you, Janice, and good evening, everybody. I will use this opportunity first to just give you a very warm welcome to all of you, and a very warm and sincere thank you, particularly to our committee founding members that you've stuck around with us for so long. We definitely appreciate your commitment. And I also want to extend a very warm welcome to our new members. For those of you that are residents, we very much appreciate taking your personal time to be with us in these discussions. And I also want to acknowledge our members from the business community, because clearly we need the balanced perspective from the business side of things as well. So I just wanted to start off by saying that it's quite a treat for me to be able to address a committee. I don't necessarily always get to do that, and I wanted to start off by saying that really appreciate working with all of you, and very excited that we've got some really neat and important work ahead of us. Things are definitely looking out from the pandemic perspective. I don't know about you guys, but I am very much looking forward to this new hybrid life that we're going to have, which will entail a mix of virtual meetings, but also some face-to-face personal interaction. So, don't want to get off on a tangent, but definitely want to plant that seed for you. And I hope that at some point in time, we can reconvene again in person. Perhaps if not for every meeting, at least a couple of times so that we can have some networking and honestly some fellowship, right? Because we are developing relationships here and friendships, and that's a really good thing that we definitely want to support to the extent that we can. But anyways, let me get on to the subject at hand. Last time, the committee had some questions for us related to budgets. I think it came up in the context of some of the outreach brainstorming that had been taking place, and the committee rightfully wanted to know if there was going to be some support either from the district or the state to support those activities. We didn't have the detail last time, but we went back as we committed to you and brought it back. So we have some more information for you. We figure since the budget is an agency-wide issue, we figure I would make the presentation so you can ask me directly some questions related to the budget. And then after my presentation, I'm going to leave you in very good hands with my staff so that you guys can dig deeper if you like, or move on to other topics. But let me start off by saying and acknowledging this very candidly. Budget transparency as it relates to AB 617 and how air agencies are implementing the program has been a thorny issue in the statewide discussions. So I definitely want to acknowledge that first and foremost. And the reason we're here with this level of detail is because we fully support transparency. We as public agencies, we go through an annual budgeting process that is transparent and public. I will acknowledge the budget documents are not the easiest read for anybody, including us, but we follow the rules. We follow the laws that mandate and dictate how an agency like an air district approaches its budgeting, and it's all for you to examine. But we brought you a synopsis of the key numbers that I think you were interested in, and that's where we wanted to start off with. So you have the material in front of you. I know that looking at things on the screens can be challenging because our screens vary in size, but you have that available to you. Obviously, the information will be posted on our website, and we can provide whatever additional formats make it easier for you. But what I wanted to start off is just to give you that perspective in terms of how our Sacramento Metro Air District stands relative to how the state monies are getting distributed across the state for the other air districts that are participating in the AB 617 program. So what you have in front of you from left to right is basically the different fiscal years. As you may recall, the program was adopted in 2017. So it was implemented beginning in 2018 and so forth. So what you have here is the allocation of the state funding that came to ARB, to each of the 6 districts that thus far have a community like South Sacramento Flooring, which is a formally adopted state sanctioned community under AB 617. And then as you may realize, there's a bunch of other air districts across the state that while they may not necessarily have a designated community, they certainly have responsibilities and lots of AB 617 related activities. So what you see here is 2 different tables. The top table is what we normally refer to as implementation. And that is the monies that we are districts, that we are agencies need to rely on to be able to do the work of AB 617 with you all. I mean, as you know, the monies are needed for supporting air monitoring activities, for supporting planning activities, for for supporting the staff that are assigned to the program, etc. And as a compendium to this information, Janice and the team are going to give you a detailed breakout of where we put the monies that we do get here for Sacramento. But the point I want to leave you is the highlight is you'll see where Sacramento ranks relative to the other air districts. You know, we have one community, and for good reason that we can get into a little later, you can see that we get a little around $1 million a year from the state to implement the program. Now, on the second table, you are going to see the monies that go for what we call incentives. And these are the cleaner projects that we have also been discussing with you all. And here I will pause and acknowledge the subcommittee of the committee, specifically Bill and Patricia and Vincent and Stephanie, who have been working with Jaime and his team to try to identify how to best communicate that the Air District in Sacramento has these incentive monies for clean air projects. And that's what this money is. So this is basically not a source of funding that we keep. This is pass through. We get it from the state. We have a program that identifies clean air projects. With your concurrence and our guidelines and the process that our board has to approve, then we go and implement clean air projects. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute in terms of what those projects are. But again, the table is giving you the perspective in terms of the types of monies we get relative to other areas. And again, if you just look at the table, you know, last year we got about 7 million. The year before it was about 14 million. Our job as an air district that cares about the Sacramento region is to try to access as much of this funding as we possibly can, because every dollar we bring is essentially an infusion of economic development and activity for clean air projects for our local businesses and the local participants that are willing to participate and to work with us on clean air projects. So those are the two buckets of principal money that comes from the state. Again, implementation is basically to run the program, and incentives, these are the projects that we can work together and identify good projects in the community to reduce emissions. Janice, can you go to the next slide, please? All right. So here's, I think, where the detail that you were asking for last time is shown. And let me just give you some of the key highlights. When we first got the mandate, the state mandate for AB 617, we designed a program that met the needs of the Sacramento region with respect to emission reductions, air pollution burden reductions. And when we did the analysis for our entire region that we submitted to the state, we anticipated that the program was going to require about $4 million a year to implement it. Obviously, we, in that analysis, factored in more communities, not just South Sacramento flooring. As you may recall, we actually identify 10 discrete and distinct communities within our region that need the AB 617 attention. The state selected you only. So that leaves us with a whole bunch of communities out there that we need to figure out a way how to help. So when you factor that in, we estimated that the program would cost us to run about $4 million a year. Now the state, as you have heard us say, it's only providing about $1.4 million a year to do this job. So that leaves us in a hole, right? That leaves us with a significant deficit of $2.6 million, or about 65% of what is needed. This is the reason we have recently come to you, and specifically, I want to thank Bill and Pat for signing on to the letter where we, with your help, deliver a message to the governor and to the leadership of the legislature saying that AB 617 is an unfunded state mandate. The mandate was given to us, but not the necessary funding. And that's why you, on behalf of the steering committee, were asking the state and the state leaders for adequate funding for the program. And we're not unique in this respect. Every single air agency, every single air district in the state that is implementing the program is trying to do more with only partial funding from the state. So that's really the key message here. But I'm not going to leave you with a negative message, because the positive message is we're committed to you. We thank you for your participation. We're going to do whatever it takes to make the best of what we have. I'm fond of saying, we got lemons, we're going to make the best lemonade we can. So the monies that you see here are distributed in activities that I'm hoping are familiar to you, right? A lot of it is the community air monitoring plan. Planning and designing, that took a lot of time working with you, a lot of staff time that we obviously have to pay for. Obviously, we're spending a nice chunk of money for the actual equipment, the instrumentation that we're deploying in the community to do the air monitoring, to collect the information that you're interested in. Obviously, those instruments out in the field require a lot of TLC. So I got to pay staff to make sure that they go out and service those instruments and collect the data, and somebody has to be mining the data and analyzing the data, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see here that the money that is necessary to implement the program in your community is about $1.44 million, the green row that you see there. And the state is not providing everything that is necessary. So that's where the gap in funding exists. And again, why we as our districts keep going back to the state asking for adequate funding. Now, in addition to that, because we are committed to you and the community, and frankly, we're not just simply going to wait until the state realizes that they need to fund the program adequately. We are ready to do what we can locally and provide our own funding sources to close the gap. And you know, that is one of the reasons that we were able to offer something that we thought was right from the beginning, and that is stipends for you, the residents, members of the committee that have been with us for so long. It's the right thing to do. And as much as we can, we're going to continue to support you from that perspective, because we really appreciate the time and the perspective that you provide to us. It's a very modest stipend. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to suggest that it's sufficient, but is what we can do is better than nothing. The other thing that I want to share with you that I think the team has already discussed with the subcommittee, and I think they're going to be discussing a little later on, is the monies that we know you need and want for outreach. I think we all agree that outreach to the community and engagement to the community is absolutely essential. It's absolutely critical to be able to accomplish what AB 617 is meant to accomplish. And for that reason, we are going to provide from our local funding sources some funding for you to work with our staff and identify the areas where we should be spending those very modest dollars. And in addition to that, as you gather by now, is there's a whole bunch of other staff that we have identified that is an expenditure on AB 617, and I think we estimated about $600,000 that, again, we as a local air district, because we are committed to you and to the program, that we are coming up with from our local funding. And, you know, I wish I could promise you that this is going to be the case every year, but because our annual budget is a yearly process, so we will plan for it and integrate it as much as we can. So the bottom line, again, is there's a funding gap, as we said. And we're going to continue to bug you and hopefully get your support so that we can go back to the state capitol and tell our state leaders who gave us this mandate to work with you to fund the program adequately. But the message that I want to leave you with is a positive one, and that is, as an air district, our commitment is real, and we're going to do everything we can to work with you and provide whatever funding we can to support the activities that you guys have been working on us, have been working on with us. Okay, the next slide. And this is my last point. And really, the only reason I wanted to talk about here is because, again, particularly for our new members of the committee, if you did a quick comparison of the tables, clearly we get about 10 times as much state money for incentives as we do for implementation, as we should. So now the question for you is, what kind of projects are we deploying with those monies? And here's essentially a pictorial of what those projects are. working with the committee. I hope that you remember that a year or so ago, we had some discussions specifically in terms of what are some of the areas where we should be funding, and this is where we landed. It makes a lot of sense because we know that the emissions that are a concern in South Sacramento and frankly throughout the region and the state come from transportation sources. So this is buses, trucks, cars, you name it. Anything that has a combustion engine that is burning gasoline or diesel is going to create a problem that we are going to pick up in the sensors. So it makes sense that the monies that we are targeting and prioritizing are to create the transformation of the transportation sector. So, you know, we've been funding a lot of electric buses for schools, which is great, right? I mean, kids are our most precious resource, and we used to put them in the dirtiest, oldest vehicles around. So now we are changing that paradigm. We know that trucks is a big concern for all of us, for all of you. I mean, the community is impacted by freeways, and there's a lot of truck traffic. So we started to, you know, plant a seed for this transformation. Now, I want to be real, it's going to take time, right? But you have to start somewhere. And frankly, we are fortunate that the state has the funding to dedicate for these projects. And the rest is obviously because now you're, you know, not relying on gasoline or diesel. We got to come up with the fueling and charging infrastructure for these future vehicles. So again, I want to leave you with this high-level thoughts. I know that I cover a lot of information. You have the information, you have the detailed addendum to this presentation. I'm going to pause now to see if you have any questions of me. It's a very brief presentation. I do want to make sure that we leave you with a sense of transparency. You've got the information that you need. If there's anything that we missed, let us know. And like I said, then I'm going to leave you with my team. And later on, there's actually space on the agenda where you guys, if you wish, you can dig into some of these numbers a little deeper, or we can bring it back in a future discussion. Okay. So I'm going to leave you with that, and I'll just thank you for giving me the opportunity and for your attention. So I guess it's back to Bill and Pat.
Thank you very much, Alberto. This is an important issue for us, and the reason that Bill and I signed on to that letter and tried to bring forward the emphasis that at the community level, the state needs to bring that funding forward because they're failing to meet the mission of AB 617 because of the budget shortfalls. So thank you very much for that. We will have more discussion in detail, but thank you so much for the presentation. Bill, I'll let you.
I see Karen Buckley has her hand up. When Pat and Bill, when you're ready.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Go right ahead.
Thanks. I hit myself off of mute and then back on it. Now, are we going to be talking more about the budget later in the meeting? Because I could add some context to some of the tables, and we also have additional information that can be shared, and I can have that put in the chat. But there is a little bit of context I'd like to share that goes along with what Alberto shared.
I prefer that you have it now. So
okay.
That
yeah,
all right.
On that subject.
Janice, can you put up the slide with the statewide numbers, please?
I think she means the first slide, Marina or Janice, whoever has the slides.
Thanks. Now, what Alberto said is true. There's not enough money for this program. And honestly, there's a lot of communities that need help. And there's no denying any of that. And whatever you guys can do to talk with the legislature, that would be great. What I do want to call out on this table is that I want you guys to keep in mind that South Coast has 6 communities that they're doing for a camp and a CERT over 2 years. And San Joaquin is doing 3 right now. And their newest community in Arvin, Lamont, their steering committee has 60 members. So they're really big. I'm not saying that they should always get more money. I just want you guys to understand how it's all playing out across the state. The Bay Area has 2, San Diego has 1, Imperial has 1. So there is a lot of work going on in the state. Everybody is deserving. AB 617 is needed in many communities. We have on the list, I want to say it's over 300 communities throughout the state. So I wanted to keep that in mind. What I'm going to ask my staff person, Jennifer Magana, she's on the line. I'm going to have her put in the chat the link to our webpage where it talks about, it shows how we all use our implementation money. So it has carbs and it has that kind of a description of all the things that we do. And then it has the district's annual reports. So they have to annually report what is done with their implementation money. And then for the incentive projects, that is on a different webpage. And that's a different reporting function because it's cap and trade funding. So it's through another division, but we can certainly make sure you guys are updated as those come in as well. But that's what I wanted to share. The legislature does sometimes decide who gets how much money, and they can say it can go to the top 5, it can go all statewide. It just depends upon how they decide to determine it. And then our board, the CAR board, they do recommend various principles to follow when using cap and trade funding. So there's that. And then the my executive team works with the districts and their association in order to determine the amounts of funding that everybody gets. So there's a lot that goes into this. And I really do hope that we do continue to get funding and hopefully enough so that everybody can do the work that they need to do. So with that, I'm gonna, I'll let it go there. And if anybody has any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. I think my only comment would be, you know, there's always disparities and other communities are doing different things and different dollar amounts. And I certainly understand that. And I guess my only comment would be if we don't have the money to do our mandate, no matter what else is happening across the state, then it affects our community in a negative way. So I do understand other jurisdictions are doing different work. I still think that we have to keep advocating for our community, and I'm sure you do as well, in spite of what anybody else is doing or not. So that would be my only comment, and I hope that doesn't come across as negative. No. I certainly understand your point, and if we are not able to obtain our goals, then I think that needs to be brought forth to our legislators, our government partners.
I think you should do that. And as a member of a state agency, we're not allowed to lobby the legislature. So I encourage all of you to take the word forward. Thank you.
So I see that Han's got her hand up. I just wanted to note for the co-leads, we knew that there would be a lot for people to chew into in this budget issue, but we also thought when we were planning that the steering committee would be really, really interested in that outreach piece too. So we had about, I think, 7 minutes more on this potentially, and then we were looking to shift. So it's up to you all, but just wanted to note that. Hyun?
Thank you, Ariel.
Thank you. Karen, just a question. Have you seen, just from your view of all the different communities across the state, have creative funding sources been sought, like nonprofit or donations, that sort of thing?
It's been the funding that we've gotten from the legislature throughout the state. I think the districts do try to find complementary incentive programs, but that's not always an option. But they're very creative, so keep that in mind.
All right. Thank you. We'll be digging into the budget related to outreach a little bit more in our next discussion area. So,
I'm sorry, Tito had his hand up.
yeah,
Oh, I didn't know if you saw.
no, I did not.
Okay.
Sorry, guys, couldn't find that remote arm.
Old-fashioned way.
Yes, sir.
Just like in
Yes, sir.
school.
Real quick, I know we're limited time. Thank you, Karen, for shedding some light as far as how the other communities compare to ours. But I can't help but recognize that in 1819 compared to 1920, there was about an $8 million reduction in that incentive funding. What are we doing wrong from the community or from our, from the inside, from the outside? God forbid it goes down lower if we're not tackling the issue what caused that reduction. Can you shed us some light why there's such a significant difference and reduction for Sacramento region compared to like, I think the Bay Area went down very minimal. The other area was very minimal, but Sacramento with reduction of about almost $8 million. Are we not promoting enough projects? We're not reaching out enough, or are we not doing enough in creating projects out there?
I think it's a little bit of a lot of different things, but I believe in that year, the cap and trade auction didn't bring in as much funding. So everybody had to take a percentage cut. And I believe that in the negotiations, I believe that Sacramento had to, or didn't have to, agreed to certain amounts. So that's what I'm thinking. But I would have to look at the actual calculations myself, and I haven't looked to see how they're exactly calculated.
So we volunteer to take less money, and the cap and trade affected us more than any other communities.
It may be. I don't know, Janice, any thoughts there? Ooh,
I can address that.
Let's let Alberto address that quickly.
So I appreciate the perspective that Karen is providing, because I think it's important for us to understand how we fit in the bigger picture of the state and the program. But I want to make a couple of statements just so that the committee is very clear. One is, one of the misconstructions and the failures, if we can call it that, of AB 617 and the way that our state elected officials gave us this mandate is that it really pits communities against each other and air agencies against each other. Okay, so I spoke about transparency. I'm going to be very transparent to you. I'm very glad that you noticed, Tito, that we got cut 50% in incentives 1 year over the next. That was entirely an ARB decision. So I think it's right for the committee to ask ARB to say, why was that? Because we certainly didn't volunteer, right? And you're right, it's basically the yearly competition where it's a rat race, if I can say that, because we're all trying to access monies that frankly don't meet the need. And that is the other big failure of AB 617. The state put in a wonderful, very positively spirited program, but they failed to identify the funding that was necessary. I don't think anybody estimated actually what it was gonna take. I mean, Karen talked about, can you imagine doing what we're doing with you with 400 communities across the state? I mentioned to you guys that we ourselves in our district identify 9 other neighborhoods in addition to South Sacramento, Florida. So that was one of the most tragic and fundamental failures. They gave us a mandate, meaning it's a law. So this is a question for him. I think or a point for him as well. Your point about fundraising and nonprofits is all well and well intended and a good idea, but let's not forget, this is a state mandate. They chose to give us this. Now, again, I want to be transparent, but I want to be positive. We are going to do what we can. Now we're here, and we've all agreed that we've identified some things that we really need to work on, not for the state, not for the electeds that gave us this, but for our own communities. We know that we can do a lot of good by working together, and we're going to do what we can with whatever state money we can. We are going to continue to try to compete, but it all comes down to votes, right? I mean, LA's got the votes, and I think it shows in the numbers. I mean, let's just be clear. So
folks, I'm going to give a 1-minute warning on this item. Go ahead, Alberto.
This is where you come in, the steering committee. We need you to be shoulder to shoulder when we go back to the state capitol and to the state agencies, advocating for you, advocating for our region. That's really what it takes. Thank you.
And Pat and I will be there again. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have to do both things at the same time. That's just the reality. But yes, and we're going to have to build some coalitions to bring louder voices to our own advocacy. Because yeah, when that cut happened, we had the cut by the largest percentage. Let's be honest. And every time a new group comes on, you know, the people with the least amount are impacted the most when the money goes to spread thinner. All right, our time is up on this section, so let's move forward on the budget. Bill, if you'll announce that.
All right, Janice, will you lead us into the outreach response discussion?
Yes, thank you. All right, so during our last steering committee meeting, the outreach subgroup did a wonderful job in providing 6 top priorities that they wanted to explore. You know, ask what can be done, what needs to what can be done. These are the things that they would like to see as part of the outreach campaign. And so, so I'm going to break this discussion into 2 slides. One slide, my next slide, is going to talk about some low-hanging fruit, right? Things that we've already anticipated for, because it's either part of the community air monitoring plan, or there are other efforts at the district that might fit fairly well in terms of having that information readily available. And that's the green 4 topics that you see on the left. My second slide is going to focus on a couple of things that might be a little bit of a bigger lift, is what I'll call it. And that's a dedicated website for the steering committee and some RFP contracts with a communication firm. And so what I have on the green, we are not talking about what I have in the green is not going to come out of the $25,000 that Alberto just talked about. And then, so I want us to keep that in mind as we're moving forward. Okay. So what are some of the things that we see that is already in development in the steering committee and the district can start? The first thing that we heard was number 1 was the public feedback and awareness campaign. And so part of that was to develop surveys, understand what the community is aware of already in terms of air quality, what they want as part of the solutions. And so we believe that the steering committee can start developing that survey, and we can share those results at the steering committee meetings when they're ready. And as part of that, distributing anything electronically, printing flyers and things like that, those are all those are encompassing in what we've already what we're already doing as part of the camp. Anything that would be outside of distributing it electronically, printing flyers, such as doing survey raffles, any targeted ads, translation would be coming out of the $25,000 that we had shared earlier. And then the second one that topic that we have heard is the wildfire smoke and awareness safety campaign. You'll hear a little bit more in a presentation later this meeting about some of the existing materials that we have already developed as part of a separate effort of trying to develop a plan to address wildfire smoke here in the Sacramento region. And we believe that there's some already existing materials that we can use for this particular effort. what we also thought about was maybe developing, what the district can also do is maybe developing some shareable social media material. So any sample language that would help steering committee members or members of the public share on their social media accounts to spread the word. And then also we did see that there was a desire to make sure that there's data available, the data available, and we have that on the district's website and on CARB's data portal. The third thing that we also saw was the multimedia campaign. There were some discussions last meeting about, reaching out to maybe local news. I think a specific example was Good Morning. Was it Good Morning Sacramento? But regardless, if it's TV, radio, written interview, we can certainly reach out to those local news stations or news outlets to see if there is any interest. There would likely need to be more discussions in terms of like building topics and what would be the goal and things like that, working with the news outlets. There was also other ideas such as developing podcasts or maybe getting on podcast. Some of the things that we could do in the interim is that we do have, depending on the goals, and we can discuss about this after I go through my couple of slides. If the goal is to share information about air quality, increasing awareness, the district does have some air quality videos that we've developed. CARB has also developed AB 617 videos as well, so that we can increase awareness by sharing those. Those are readily available. And I believe there was also an idea about creating a hashtag and creating trends. And that's something that I think we just need to work out what specific hashtags that people would like to use to tag onto any into any media material, social media material that we would like to share. The next one was about community engagement campaign and the meeting format. There was a lot of discussions about, since things are opening up, are we going to be able to meet in person? And definitely we would, is there a hybrid approach? So definitely, as we're moving forward into the future, that is something definitely we can explore, and to have continue to have Zoom meetings, but also looking into exploring live streaming on YouTube live stream. That's something that we could work with our IT team to see if that's something that's feasible. And then I think on as part of that particular topic, on that particular topic, there were discussions about paying community leaders to receive a stipend. And so what our suggestion would be that we would continue to encourage community leaders to apply to become a steering committee to receive a stipend. So I'll stop there for a second. And like I said, I have a second slide so we can, Bill and Pat, do you want us to, do you want me to go through the next two, or do you want me to stop here to talk about, to get any discussion here first?
You can go forward and finish the presentation. We can do questions after, if that's okay with Pat.
That works for me because I think there are going to be quite a few questions, and then from the public as well. Thank you.
And then so this brings me to the second slide, which are the bigger lifts. And there's needs to, we're hoping to have further discussions with the steering committee on, what are, some of the goals, what are some of the goals, and how do we go about achieving these two particular items. So the first one is the dedicated steering committee website. In the short term, We can make minor adjustments and modifications to the steering committee, to the district's webpage to make it more community friendly. We agree with everyone that there could be enhancements that are made to it to make sure that it's more community friendly. But I did want to make a point to say, the district does not currently have internal resources or expertise to create or manage a new dedicated steering committee website for the public. But we also know that, Rhonda, you had shared that maybe there might be some creative ways in which we can go about tackling this particular task. The last one I'll have here is a request for RFP, contract with a communication firm to develop and implement outreach strategies. Our suggestion would be that the steering committee can partner with nonprofit groups to develop outreach projects under CARB's Community Air Grant. And also, we can also discuss about this particular item would be coming out of the set aside $25,000 to complete this task. Just from our experience, in terms of working with communication firms, it does usually probably exceed what we currently have budgeted. So I want the steering committee to keep that in mind. And also they have their own, admins and overheads and things that they will likely charge as part of that. So that's what I have for the couple of slides, just as our report back as we went through the information. We do have, a couple of questions that we can get into later, but I'll open it up to discussion first on what we brought back.
Thank you, Janice. That was helpful. What comments or thoughts does the committee have? And then we want to also leave some time for public questions about these as well. If you raise your virtual hand or your real hand in live time, what are
Rhonda applauded.
I didn't mean to applaud. I'm raising my hand.
Go ahead, Rhonda.
I'm applauding too. I'm glad to see we got some to do outreach. I noticed you said there was 6 different recommendations we made, but actually we made 5. I think you just pulled the website development out of the multimedia.
Oh, okay.
Because that was under, I think, multimedia.
Mm-hmm.
So we really made 5 recommendations and you pulled that one out to make it a separate one.
Okay. Now, I do have a comment. I believe that the district now only has 1 communications person. When we're looking at communications or a website, we also have the ability, we need to have the ability to have it monitored regularly and to be able to respond to comments and questions. So those are considerations we have to take into account. Are there any other comments about or the thoughts that came back from the district presentation? Particularly those of you who participated in the committee, and we have some public members such as Victoria and others who participated in that committee. What are your thoughts? Hi, Victoria.
Hi, you can call me out. I got to jump in there and make a comment. Hello, everybody. I think that was a really great capture, Janice, and Mark, of everything that we discussed with the outreach committee. Exactly the same conversation that we had. So I was really looking forward to seeing what questions you guys had.
Tito.
And just to clarify, I think Janice presented to the outreach group, so you guys have heard this piece.
Right.
Go ahead, Tito.
Hi everybody. Janice left the presentation. Thank you so much for that. Easy to see and understand slideshows. Looks better than the budget. It's $8 million still hurting my eyes looking at it. But anyways, I love that concept of the website and the podcast. I think a lot of us maybe once a month only get to see each other, and there's so many important topics that have been discussed today or various meetings that I think we need deeper stories into, right? Perspective and insight, whether it's about clean air or EV or even funding. I mean, these are important topics, and a lot of us have been gotten involved in the communities where, we needed to have not just in language support, but also perspective on why we're involved in something like this and how does that affect them. So I think having our own website allows that type of dialogue and leverage the podcast aspect. Trust me, it's not as hard as you think. It's probably harder to edit the stuff that we talk about, but it's not hard to create. And so the question is, when do we start? Because I think I'm just tired of waiting. I just let's get involved. Let's share some stories. Let's get some perspective. Let's get some numbers out there so we can get some money back. I'm done with that. Thanks.
Bravo.
Can I ask a question? So I heard a couple of interesting things that we weren't thinking about when we were thinking about podcasts. What I heard was that we wanted to share stories, and that's the stories that the community would share as part of why air pollution, air quality is important for you all to try to create that awareness. Is that the goal?
In part, absolutely. That captures folks' imagination, and it also captures the relatability when you are living this, when your children are suffering high rates of asthma or missing class time. I mean, right now they've been home, but now going back into the classroom, that is a significant economic pain for a family, especially single moms. When you have a sick child who has under the weather because of an asthma condition, how do you leave them home alone to try to maintain themselves so you can still go to work, so you can be able to put food on the table, keep a roof over their head? These are real impacts. And these are also kids falling behind in academic programming because of illness that is related to air quality in very large part, as well as the grandma who lives in the house who's having difficulty breathing or has and everybody's trying to take care of that sick family member because they're struggling because of the impacts on heart disease, hypertension, and their own breathing conditions as well. These are stories that are real and that are our neighbors, and I think elevates the issue and makes it real. So yes, collecting those stories becomes a real important piece, I think.
Yeah, that reminds me of something that CARB actually does as well. And Karen, you can hop in on here. This reminds me of the environmental justice stories that they have. And so I've sat in on a few that hits to exactly what you guys were sharing. And I don't know, Karen, if you might want to share a little bit about maybe the feasibility of getting something like that.
I would have to look into it more because it's my EJ team that works on that part of it. I can share the EJ blog so that everybody can look at some of that. There'll be some discussions on there that they can see.
All right.
Okay.
This would be another way too for us to get feedback and dialogue from the public and the community. That's what we want. We want that engagement. It goes back to the engagement piece. So we got dialogue going back and forth, but we really want to hear and listen and give the public a chance to speak out and express their stories and their interests, their concerns, and their solutions.
Mm-hmm. So it looks like, particularly under the low-hanging fruit slide that you showed, that we have some areas that we could start to reach out, and we have partners who in the community who are willing to share their methods that they have used and resources to help that. And those should be minimal costs. The issue about do we make a raffle? Do we make a pay for participation in it? That's an open discussion. I know Valley Vision has struggled with that and are reevaluating that for themselves. But yeah, how do we start to tell the story? And then how do we build that, that trend of, love our area, South Sacramento, or whatever theme we want to be able to make. Hian, your hand is up.
Yes, Janice had mentioned something about sharing a link, making shareable language on social media. It brought up an idea for me. I don't know if Karen can answer this question too, but there was an email that Marina had sent out about an AB 617 consultation group. And are there resources that are already made that we can also leverage and utilize? I know Janice is going to talk about wildfire materials, materials related to wildfire awareness coming up, but so we don't have to, we only have 25,000. Oh, we have 25,000, but how can we make the most of that and use what already exists?
Right.
Also, we have an opportunity to partner with Victoria's group. She'll be going door to door with flyers and so forth. And that's a good time for us to tag on to that so she can, share our news about us.
That's
and she's going door to door. I think she said she's starting in July. So we need to jump on that opportunity.
Sacramento Tree Foundation, I think, is a natural partner with us, and they are going into the same communities that we are that we're trying to reach out to.
And just to clarify, Rhonda, so you're thinking of materials that as that group goes door to door, they can share your materials?
Yes.
And we can link.
And we were shown some materials that's already made by Janice that showed like the do's and don'ts of different levels of air quality. Something like that might work, or how to deal with children with asthma. I don't know. She had a couple of different things, but we need to jump on it now while the opportunity knocks on our door, or we'll miss that window. So I know we said we wanted to do a website first, and we do, but I think there's some things that we could do jointly at the same time, and we don't want to miss that opportunity, especially in the area that she'll be canvassing.
That's a really good segue, Rhonda. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm just going to go ahead and take some notes, and because we had some questions for the steering committee about, what is the most urgent piece to do first, right? I mean, we still have to prioritize, even though these are all, a lot of things that we can do. And what are our next steps? I want to get us to the deliverable. And so what I heard you say, Rhonda, is that, we may need to get some materials out so that we can leverage Victoria's project, the Sac Trees project, to get some of this information out. And so what type of information do we think is most urgent to get out? Like, you shared a little bit about the wildfire. You guys will hear a little bit more about that, and maybe we can come back. But are there any other things that we think, could go out in the meantime too?
Well, you had showed a flyer or something with information about the different levels, I think, of air quality and what to do, in each situation. I think overall, I think we like that. It was like a grid, so that people could follow it. I don't know what else you have, but maybe it'll kind of look at your inventory of items and kind of pick, what might work. But just maybe generic information right now while the air is kind of like going through the fires and everything, and it's bad. But in general, they need to know what to do. Or if there's any tips to keep their houses cool and save energy and, that kind of thing. I don't know.
If I may, as a real quick suggestion, Janice, I think there's some great pieces here right now. Why don't we, even though we have this slide right here at the moment, maybe we let the committee and the public finish talking a little bit about this other piece, and then we'll get into Patrick Guild with Breathe California is actually touching. I'm going to sort of jump ahead a little bit. Patrick is joining us. Breathe California is one of the partners on the wildfire outreach information we've been doing. It's part of another statewide mandate that we're working on. So he's going to give a very short presentation, which includes that outreach material that we shared with the outreach subgroup last week as sort of a prelim. So maybe we'll let the committee and the public finish talking about the broader outreach picture. Janice, I would suggest maybe we come back to that slide after we get through Patrick's piece, because that may spur ideas and input from the committee and the public.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that as well.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think when the other piece that we get, it will spur more thoughts. I still see your hand is up. Are you still have a question?
No, I forgot to unraise it, but I'm messaging Karen right now about just leveraging resources that other committees might have throughout the state.
Right, to share those, as well as these. This may be also opportunities where we can put links to some of these really good videos that have been developed as well. That's a simple thing to add information where people can go find more resources.
Right.
Bishop Baker, do you have one question before we move on?
Yeah, back to the grants. Are you guys allowed to apply for a grant if it's from a private company?
As the air district?
Yes.
It would probably depend more upon, it's probably one I can't really answer for sure. It would probably depend upon how that private company has set up the grant opportunity. So if the grant opportunity from that private company allows government agencies, then we could, but it would really be more on their end as opposed to our end. There are cases though where, like, for example, EPA grants, that's not private, of course, but when we talk about federal EPA grants, we have applied for grants before. In fact, that's one of the reasons why we're able to do a longer phase 2 monitoring program in the community right now, is because we did get an EPA grant that allows us to go longer than the original 6 months we had put into the camp. But a private one would really just be based upon how they have set up their grant.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Let's go into our wildfire outreach update.
You all are seeing my screen, right?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Patrick, take it away.
Well, Janice, real quick,
All right,
I know I sort of did. Sorry, go ahead, Patrick.
Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, I was just going to give you a little bit more of introduction, even though I did sort of prep it a moment ago. So everyone, just as a quick way of introduction, Patrick Guild and in particular Breathe Sacramento as a whole is one of our partners working on efforts for another state legislation called AB 661, which came about after some of the big wildfires, not just the most recent ones, but the ones a couple of years ago, with an interest in having Sacramento being sort of a pilot, if you will, of how the different government agencies, city, county, the public health officers, the city emergency response officers, the air district, can how better coordinate, not just amongst themselves, but also with, for example, schools and the broader public on wildfire. And so this is another related program that's going on here at the district at the moment. Breathe Sacramento is an integral partner in this. And so we did ask them to go ahead and come and speak with us today just to share some of the different outreach material that collectively that group has been generating, because we thought it tied in very nicely with the ask from the committee as one of your priorities is how do we get information out today before we get into the next wildfires, especially with these heat waves coming up. And so, sorry, with that, I just would like to again thank and welcome Pat here to speak and share some of that information we've been collectively working on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark, and thank you, Janice, for the intro, the opportunity to be here, and to the steering committee for your interest in these materials and the opportunity to get in front of you. Janice, can we go to the next slide, please? So as Mark said, AB 661 came about October of 2019 as a result, a call for a need in response to the campfires of 2018. There was a need to get the information that you all are very much talking about into the hands of the public when there's a wildfire smoke event. I mean, if you can recall, there was smoke everywhere. It was hard to breathe. Not sure who to call. Not sure who could answer questions. And so the plan has been to develop a coordinated plan that's going to serve as a source of information when we inevitably have another one of these wildfire smoke events, as Mark talked about, with the warm weather and the drought and the wind. And we're already seeing it happening in some parts of the state that wildfire smoke season is back. So it's important that we have a plan. Also, as Mark mentioned, Breathe California has worked with the Air District on a lot of different things over the years. We are a lung health organization that focuses on a great number of different things, including lung health, anti-tobacco education programs. We work on outreach in a number of different communities on different initiatives. And so we were very happy to be a part of this one as it's very important to the work that we do. And with some great partners of ours in the community. You can see some of those partners listed here: county health officer, emergency services, school districts, regional planning agencies, and CARB. And you can see by the graphic in the bottom right that they all play in equal part to the formation of this plan. And so we all, as residents, know what to do the next time this happens. Next slide, please, Janice. And so the plan has been broken into four elements. We are working. We've worked through elements 1 through 3. Element 1 started in person. We started doing in-person outreach right before COVID, so we were able to have a couple meetings of the Element 1 working group, which consisted of 13 school districts, some utilities, and other community partners. We started with school districts because we heard very loudly from them and very clearly that it was really impacting them, and there was a clear need for more information. So, at what point do schools close? Do we send kids home? Some of the questions that are really big questions that were on their minds, that we were able to get them together and kind of share the different things, things they were experiencing based on, kind of where they are in the region or the size of the school district, and what pressures weighed on them to make calls, about all of these things. And they help to inform the formation of an air quality index, that grid that was talked about earlier, that they can help refer to during these events to help answer their questions. Element 2, the identification of responsible agencies, included understanding who exactly needed to be, sorry about the dog, part of the formation of a plan, what role they would play, and what communication looks like during wildfire smoke events. And then we've just been in Element 3, best practices for business and public agencies. That's included a survey of different business groups, e-bids, the local chambers, and a survey that we've gotten out. So we had one virtual meeting where we were able to talk to a lot of the different groups and get an idea of what they had heard from the members that are businesses, the people that they serve, the different business interest groups that are represented in the region. We weren't able to meet or to get every group represented at this meeting, and so we sent out a survey that's just closed, that we had about 60 or 70 respondents in to share some of the feedback of what they experienced during wildfire smoke events, what they'd like to see in a plan, how they think they could benefit from receiving that information, and some of the important details. Next will be strategies for vulnerable populations. So folks who have pre-existing lung conditions, the elderly, folks who work outside, folks who have to walk to and from school, things like that. We're going to continue to formulate an outreach strategy around reaching those populations, and that's the next phase of the work. Next slide, please. So putting the plan into action had 5 kind of key components. Public messaging will have clear online information to individual agencies and business actions, school monitoring and filtration systems, and clean air centers. A lot of these things are being worked on kind of in parallel right now. The biggest one that was helpful starting in 2018 and is going currently, kind of already in place is fire.airnow.gov. It's a website that you can use to see current air quality that includes, local citizen air monitors, and it's a great resource. Next slide, please. And the second element, or one of the elements, was the different charts, materials that were brought up here today that resulted as some of these conversations and feedback that we got. The one on the left is kind of a flow of things you should do in a wildfire smoke event. So go to the AirNow website, go to airquality.org for more information, numbers to call, places to get information on exposure. You can see there a lot of great resources there for folks. On the right, things to avoid. So you don't want to kick up additional dust. You don't want to burn things. You try not to use heavy equipment and tractors because it's going to add to the already poor air quality conditions and lung health conditions that come with a wildfire smoke event. Janice, next slide, please. This is another great resource, 5 steps to take during a smoke event. This is for all of the groups that we've mentioned, schools, business groups, public agencies. This is kind of another flow chart of things you should do to make sure that you have a plan and to share your plan and then implement the plan. And then finally, the air quality action chart for schools. This might look familiar. This is a tool that has largely been around in some iteration for a long time. We updated it through this process with feedback that we got from everybody about kind of how to make it school centric or public agency centric. It's a great resource because it can tell you, if you're looking at the AirNow site, where you can see what the air quality index is telling you, these are some precautions that you should take based on different groups, or if you have events that are outside, kind of things like that. It should be able to help you through some of the theoreticals and different scenarios you might come across during the wildfire smoke events. And finally, like I was saying, the fire.airnow.gov website is a great resource. It has the really accurate heavy-duty scientific monitoring data, as well as data that has been contributed by individuals who have purple air quality monitors, and the shared information should help you kind of understand, like what's going on at large in the region, and then hyper locally where monitors exist. And so I can put in the chat really quick. That website, and so if you need to see it any larger, you can copy and paste or type that in, and that'll take you to that. So like Mark said, really quick, presentation on the AB 661 work that we've been doing. Like I said, we still have element 4 to complete. That will involve more outreach. And it sounds like there's questions and good ideas to kind of get that outreach completed. So I'm looking forward to that conversation and any questions that you all may have.
So real quickly, I'll just address one question I saw pop up because I think Bishop Chris was mentioning some of the charts were a little bit hard to see, especially when there was 2 on there or such not. We'll go ahead and get linked in the chat in just a moment. We do already have all of these various charts that are being shown here are available on the district website. So we'll get the links into the chat as well so that you can click and zoom in as needed to look at them in answer to that question from Bishop Chris.
I have a question about those, the air district monitors and stuff. When they're going to those, are the districts, what sensors are they paying attention to? And as an example, Elk Grove Unified School District is spread over a vast area. Is the local school knowledgeable about how to find the sensors that are closest to them? Or are they looking at something in a downtown area or at a district office where the air quality may be much better?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take the first stab at it, and then Janice can jump in, or Patrick as needed on that one, Pat. It's something that we've definitely been working with the different school districts, at least those that we've been inviting all of them to participate in this process, but certainly those that have been participating, that is one of the questions and things we've been trying to share and help understand is where are the nearest monitors? Because especially, as you just said, Pat, especially like Elk Grove or, there's districts that span quite a geographic area. And certainly there may be smoke impacts. Sometimes like last year, they're so widespread, it's impacting everyone. But there have been other fires where it's impacting only one part of the county, one side versus the other. And depending on where that school district is spanning. So we are trying to let them know both where the regulatory monitors are. But one of the nice things about the Air Now website, which we were showing there at the end, is that EPA website on the fires includes both all of our regulatory stations, and also it includes devices like the Purple Air for right now. They're looking to include additional low-cost sensors, even like the Clarity, for example. They're going through and just making sure that they're all trying to share the same type of information. So the nice thing about that particular website is it gives an even greater depth of information than what we have just with the regulatory stations. So Mark, to that is one of the questions I had, because Purple Air has been out, and I've heard of and I've heard other entities talk about getting that information, but we use Clarity. That in our particular monitors down here. What's holding up getting that on the same level and getting to be included in such an information source? Yeah. So I'm channeling another agency here, so I can't speak in 100% certainty there, Pat. But in terms of a lot of the meetings and things that I've attended on this, and I know Janice has said it on most, if not all of them as well, is it's more a matter of, without throwing too much language issues into it, it's about just making sure that they're doing the same correlations and how they're comparing two regulatory stations. So hopefully they're all giving the same type of information. So they started with Purple. Go ahead, Janice.
So Purple Air has been around for a longer time. Right. And so EPA and a lot of state agencies have done a lot of research on how to match the data up with the federal monitors. Okay. And so what they were able to do was that they're able to develop a method of bringing these low-cost sensors closer, showing that it's closer to the federal monitors. Yes. And so they decided to go ahead and use that particular type of sensor as part of their Fire Air Now, because they know that this was something that people wanted now and not waiting until all of the different types of sensors have the same information. Okay, so getting that, so in this AB 661 coordination,
is there any resource or funding that's going to bring purple air monitors to individual school sites?
Do you want to go ahead and answer that, Mark? Or?
Sure, I'll go into it. So when 661 was passed, that was actually part of our discussion to the state legislature, was an interest, at least on our part, in doing that. We're still, not to come back to different funding issues, but we're still working with the state to see if they'll help come up with that type of information. There are some other programs. They're not necessarily going to cover the entire county, but there is, for example, the city of Sacramento is providing some funding for some additional air monitors. The city of Rancho Cordova did something like that. So hopefully there will be more of these become available for schools. And that is something that we're in discussions with schools on, is it even maybe something that the district simply helps to get a broader contract, and then the different schools could simply piggyback onto that in order to pick them up.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any further questions for Patrick in terms of the materials that we showed that the steering committee might be able to use more in the immediate term?
What's the accessibility for some of us in the public to be able to get those charts? And as parents know, hey, this is what's supposed to be happening, as opposed when I was watching a long distance running team out running in their practice during a pretty heavy smoke event. And, you know, long distance runners run far longer than 30 minutes.
Right.
So
this information is posted on our website right now. The charts that we have shown are all on our website, and it's at the wildfire smoke information. So all of this is public and readily available. Correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick.
Yeah. And thanks for David for sharing the AQI chart. I'm happy to link to the other ones in the chat in just a moment.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just had a clarifying question too. Pat, it made it sound as if you will have materials available later on for vulnerable populations, which I think are the folks that Pat was referring to, more of people exercising outdoors. But maybe that's not in the immediate time frame for the group to use.
Yeah, the outreach with vulnerable populations will be more about understanding and like kind of how we customize those or curtail those materials. So like the AQI chart's a really good example, because for schools, we kind of made it so it's like if you have a graduation or an outdoor assembly, like cut it to this length. It's almost, I think Pat might have been referencing that by saying, you know, the track team's outside for more than 30 minutes, which is, you know, a recommendation at certain AQI. So with vulnerable populations, you know, there would be recommendations for like, you know, asthma sufferers in this event. You know, this is what you might want to limit your time. You know, I would imagine that's what the end product is going to look more like. So for schools, that AQI chart exists. For business, if you're working outdoors, that was the element 3 thing.
Right, but those vulnerable populations materials, you wouldn't have those sort of for this smoky wildfire season for the group to help to use.
Well, Patrick, if I may real quick, and Ariel, to your question, vulnerable populations are already in part addressed within the air quality standards themselves. You know, even whether it be ozone or particulate matter, we already say that when you get into, you know, I want to say it's the orange level on the charts, that's already unhealthy to sensitive groups. And sensitive groups are vulnerable populations. It's your children, it's the people that are exercising, it's people that have other health related issues.
Yeah.
So to that extent, you know, is it specific just to say, you know, group A or B? You know, those are things that will still be worked on, but a lot of what's going on out there already has transferability and can be used by many of those groups. So even that chart that they just had for the schools, you know, to Pat's question on the track team going around, it's either the after school activity, sporting activity, or the PE recess. You can call it pretty much one and the same. Whether they're running for recess outside or they're running for their cross country practice, I personally would say that's probably one and the same in terms of looking at the impacts and how to, try and make safe, healthy choices for those populations.
So I'm going to show, I'm showing on my screen the air quality index. This is typically how we share how good the air quality is throughout the year. And, you saw a matrix that had these different colors. And so part of that explanation, like it says right here, unhealthy for sensitive groups, 101 to 150. People with heart and lung disease, older adults and children are at greater risk and should limit prolonged outdoor exertion. So I think this is, information that could be helpful for the community to get out, because a lot of what we're talking about, we do have these specific recommendations that says, you should limit this, you should limit avoiding all outdoor exertion. We should limit, some things like that. So that's what Mark was saying is that it is built within the air quality index.
Okay, so I guess what I'm getting to is this is all dependent that the public understands and knows that they need to go to an air district site and that it's not readily available in their hands. The schools don't hand out that matrix to the parents. But you know what? If the parents know that information, they can start to demand better from their schools when they see there are violations of it as well. Or people saying, well, we didn't know, because, somebody in administration might have that chart, but it may not be down at the local school level, or the phys ed teacher didn't get the chart, but it's in the district someplace.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. We just need to be able to get this to the lowest level possible where it can be utilized. Once I know that information, it's information I can use, but I cannot scan through every page of the Air District website to try to glean what it is that I need to know.
Right.
We've got to get it. If we're talking about at schools, then that information simplified needs to be down at the school, neighborhood school level, where parents and community can access it.
Right. And I think what I would, Pat, don't disagree with you at all. And that's one of the reasons why we're sharing some of this information. And we can share these links if there's, we can send it, follow up by email as well, in addition to it being in the chat. Is that we do want to get this into the hands of everyone on this call and beyond.
Right.
So that all of you can also help us. Obviously, we're already working with the different school districts. We're going to be making sure they're aware of this. But then to your point, how can this group also help us make sure that information is, out through the parent newsletters, so that's how we want to also help get this information, because I think this is one of the questions that the committee had said early on is, what do we do today? We don't want to be waiting. We don't want to wonder. So that's why we want to share that we have these information today. How can we help get these links into your hands or to the other necessary hands in our community? I mean, for us, it's the whole county, but as it relates to this community, into the hands of this community, to help you guys share this information and help us share this information.
And I think having that relevant information as part of our outreach, getting it from all the different entities that have that, and us getting it out. So takes us right back to what's the most urgent pieces for us to do. And I say, get some of this stuff, get material printed, and get it where we can start to distribute it.
Sounds good there. And, going back to maybe, and again, we're going to look to you guys for your guidance on this, but I know one of the questions, even back on some of the multimedia, meaning reaching out to, whether it be Good Morning Sacramento or whatnot, this might be one of those, one of the questions we were going to be asking in a broader sense is, what is the message the committee is hoping for us to convey? This might be one of those early messages that you would like us to try and convey through the media as well, as just making sure they are aware of that they can help us disseminate this information to the public as well.
So Bishop Chris?
Yes, let me work with, I'll be working with one of the Elk Grove School Board members on some issues he asked me to help him on. So I will mention this to him and see if he could push the issue as far as getting it to the schools, getting to the board quicker, because I think he chairs the part where you can do presentations to the board and all that stuff. So let me talk to him and see where he's at on it too.
Sounds good, Chris. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Janice, go ahead with your.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we want to get the information to the community's hands. And so I'm trying to think of, you know, how do we move from this to the next step, and specifically what information are we going to be getting to Victoria? And so I guess my question to the committee and maybe the subgroup is, you know, do we want to maybe have a meeting to, or, you know, we can try to put maybe a packet together and see what you guys think that can be shared based on, you know, our discussion today, or if there's, you know, or if we need to have a smaller subgroup meeting to try to figure out you know, which 2 flyers are we gonna share with Victoria to disseminate. So I'm just trying to think of like the next.
So
Victoria's got her hand up. What's your comment, Victoria?
Hi, I just want to be really clear about what I'm doing in the community. So what I think is important is that the community make these decisions together. Like, how do we inform our school that this is our air quality? So the messaging that I'm giving to the community of Bowling Green, of the priority 1A area where I've decided to go and send my, this is how you plant trees to better your air quality message is, you know, did you know that you've been identified by this public steering committee as a priority 1A area? You know, Bowling Green, did you know that you're part of this assembly bill community and that you can be a part of it, and that you need to come to these meetings so that you can get involved? That's the message that I'm flyering door to door. It's not like, here's some wildfire information. It's like, hey, come be a part of this group so that you can come and get this information and learn how to invite your neighbors and tell us how to best communicate with one another so that we can snowball it out through the rest of the boundaries and through the rest of the seasons that we go through, not just wildfire. So I just wanted to be clear about the messaging that I'm giving the community, which is come to the website. You know, here's the Bowling Green Air Monitor live data. This is where you go, and this is how you can get involved.
Gotcha. Ian had her hand up.
My question was whether materials are available in other languages.
Do you want to address that? I don't know if you guys have that in the works or whatnot.
Yeah, you know, it's always really valuable to hear what languages they would be useful in. We do have some resources to translate these. So, you know, of course, we want to make sure that, you know, just given the nature of the conversation, they are available and, you know, easily read by as many people as possible. So we haven't started to translate them. I think when we have the 4 elements complete, we was the plan, but I think it makes sense to get them, you know, ready to go as soon as possible, given, you know, how close we are to wildfire season. So if you have, you know, a desired language, please let us know.
Well, and Patrick, you're working with school districts. School districts also have a real good idea of what all the languages that they're dealing with within their communities. That's going to give you a really good sense, as well as what may be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What was our next? Jesus?
Yes. Yeah, thank you. My experience is that working with Sacramento County Mental Health, Department of Mental Health, in Sacramento County, we have 8 key languages. So maybe we can translate those documents on those languages, the ones that people speak more in Sacramento County.
Yes.
So maybe, and I can provide you with the list of those 8 languages, primary.
Thank you. Jesus,
yeah, thank you.
That would be useful. I know when I worked in North Sacramento, we had to have a lot of Russian translation because we had very large Russian population there with that. But the Sacramento County already does have a list of primary languages. They do translate.
We call the threshold languages for Sacramento County. So I can send those to you.
So folks, we're running a little long on this. I see Rhonda has her hands up, but it sounds like if you all want to circle on your next steps and focus that, and I think Janice suggested it might be another subgroup meeting and they can bring materials. Rhonda, if you want.
I was just going to tag on to what Victoria said. We could probably provide both, information about how to, what steps to take during a wildfire and come to the meeting to learn more about what we're doing. I think it'd be both.
Yeah. The other piece that I want to tag on to is we had decided in our priority areas, priority 1 areas, and we will be coming back to it in the future. But that was also some of the data that we heard about our black carbon and some of our toxins. Our priority 1A area is significantly in that, as we're getting closer to the decision about where our phase 3 monitor will go. This is a community, I think, justifiably, we can say that's maybe our focus point for all of this initial communication. All right. Janice, I know we're running out of time. Do we need to get some more down for next steps?
Yeah, I guess what I heard was that we want something we can use some of the materials that we have based on what Patrick just shared. But I also heard that there was a desire potentially to develop something new, right? Like a flyer of some sort. And so is that what, did I get that right? And so I'm trying to figure out, like, do we need to have a meeting with the subgroup to, narrow that down, or can, because that might, but if we're having a flyer developed, we may have to, have one of our contractors, try to help us develop this as part of that. And so would that be something that the steering committee would be interested in as part of coming out of the 25K budget?
That money is going to end up going fast, but I think we do have to, and I think once again, like Victoria was saying, identifying this, letting this community know, hey, you are a significantly impacted community. We need to come out and get your, and have you talk with us. So come on out to these meetings. And also, that's where we're going to start to target our surveys and other things to get a pulse of what's going on in that community. So, and maybe, I don't know, outreach community, the outreach subgroup has done some good work in doing this, and maybe that's the best jump off place for getting what we want to get out first. And we have a person in Victoria who's already going into that priority 1 community. What does she need us to design for her messaging as well?
Victoria, can we present something, like write up a draft? Because you kind of have an idea of what you need to say, and then present it back to Janice, and then they can make it look pretty and all that kind of stuff.
You
Well, I was just
absolutely can. I would, I would volunteer to do that. I wouldn't need any funding, as long as it's okay being on the front and back of a sack tree flyer, and I'm already printing them. The information is very simple. It's just the address of the steering committee on the Air District site, right? This is where you announce the meetings. This is where the monitors are listed. So unless there was a specific message you wanted to add, then I wouldn't need any additional help from the committee at this time.
There you go. We can save some money.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think all I was going to say is what we can also just share both with, well, we'll share with this a whole subgroup, which Victoria, you'll be then getting information as well, as we can share. They're a bit dated now, but we have like some of the original flyers, et cetera, so that you can, so rather than us, so I was going to differ a little bit than Janice saying, hey, do we need to go and have something developed and professional? You know, to the extent that the group is good with this, you know, we can pull probably from some existing resources to a common message, something that you think will work well, Victoria, going on the flyers that you guys are already producing. So maybe we'll take a day and we'll sort of go back through some stuff that we've shared in the past and share that back with the subgroup as maybe then just a quick starting point where something can be pulled together in a very simple form. Here's when, where, and how.
Okay. All right, we're getting very tight on time. Are we ready to move forward?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
I-
Is the steering committee ready to move forward?
I think that we can.
Yes.
Right. All right. So, Bill, are we ready for new business?
Absolutely. Take us away.
Right. This is me again. Let me just share my screen. So part of the next meeting's agenda topics is to, and I prepped this in our beginning discussions, is that we're going to come back, bring a little bit more rounding off of our more data, not more data, but rounding off, you know, the phase 3 location data. And we're hoping to have a discussion with the committee and a recommendation on where the steering committee would like for us to focus our efforts in trying to secure a location for the phase 3 location. And so as I have mentioned before in previous meetings, you know, sometimes finding these places with the proper, you know, power specifications and things like that is a little bit more difficult. And so it may not be exactly that block, but where do you want us to target looking for a location? The next thing that we wanted to talk about was also the steering committee meeting schedule and timelines. And as Alberto shared in his budget discussion, those assumptions came with meetings for half of the meetings that we are currently having now. So basically, it would be a meeting in July, October. Is it every other month, something like that, Mark? So instead of every month meetings, it would be about every other month. And so we want to walk through, you know, and discuss with you all what that might look like. And as part of that, how do we create subgroups so that we can continue, if the steering committee would like, to continue this discussion in the interim, so that we can continue the work moving forward, or any, you know, subgroup follow-ups with the outreach subgroup or anything like that. So those were the topics that we are going to suggest that we talk about, so that we can start getting the phase 3 location cited. Is there any questions?
that's a priority, because how we can continue to move forward. We knew coming into this year that we had some budget restrictions, and we were talking about initially 6, maybe being able to have 6 meetings, formal meetings. But we've got to be able to keep moving forward. Otherwise, we're just going to grind to a halt. So yes, creating the subgroups and timeframes and time to implement outreach and to move forward is essential. I think that takes priority over a lot of other discussion. So what are other folks' thoughts?
Well, this is Steve. I agree. I think you know, we want to keep some momentum going here. So whatever we need to do.
Okay.
And I agree with you too, Pat, that this should take priority. This is
All right.
All right.
Okay. That's the piece. So at our next meeting, Janice, you're going to get us some information, so we will be able to make a decision about putting in their phase 3 monitor.
Yes.
Where in our priority?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So with that, I will pass it back to the co-leads or Ariel to open up public comments.
Co-leads, would you like me to?
Yes.
Go right ahead. You're moving.
All right. So members of the public, if you would like to speak on any topic for the group, once again, to raise your hand, you can either go to participants or reactions and you'll see a blue hand and click that. If you're on the phone, it would be *9 to raise your hand. Or if necessary, as Tito has done, you can wave at the screen if you have your screen on.
By the way, Tito, it's not just you, because as I'm looking at my screen, I don't see my hand raised at the moment. So I would probably do it the old school way too. So it's not just you.
All right. So it looks like we do not have any members of the public who'd like to speak.
All right. With that, Bill, I'll let you handle.
All right, so we have any further comment from our steering committee members before we close?
Yeah, so do we need to make a motion or anything that we're going to move forward with those low-hanging fruit items and a couple other items that Janice went over?
I would
go ahead, Pat.
I would simply say I'm not even sure that we need a vote on it. I think that we have approval, but we can vote on that. I think we need to move on all aspects of the low-hanging fruit that we can get to.
Okay.
And in particular to meet what Victoria needs for her piece that I don't want to hold her up.
Right.
But yeah.
I just want to make sure that was clear. Okay.
Real quick, Janice, if I could have you put back up on the screen then the low-hanging fruit slide, just real quick. So the one thing I would just probably throw out there is this, this is all low-hanging fruit. We've already heard you guys in terms of the priority of saying, hey, we have Victoria's already heading out into, the priority 1A area. So we'll go and get some material right away from that. What would probably be helpful just on the district's end, this doesn't have to happen. This can happen in whatever timeframe works for the subgroup. And I don't think this necessarily needs a vote or anything, at least from what I'm hearing and seeing. because everyone seems to be in agreement, this is low hanging fruit, is just, as you've looked at this and the material we've shared today is just what the subgroup and or the committee as a whole is thinking as, the first priorities. The survey results obviously or the surveys themselves are something that the subgroup can meet as needed to start thinking about what you see in the way of surveys. Because I know when we met with the subgroup, they'd indicated there's probably gonna be several ideas of surveys, some that would happen now, some down the road, et cetera. So I think, just to clarify then, what I'm hearing is that the subgroup is basically being authorized by the committee to go ahead and continue working on these efforts in some cases, and or letting the district know in terms of some of the priorities, like us getting into the local news. But we just need to know then, again, what that messaging is that you're hoping for us to be conveying. I'm guessing probably wildfire to begin with, in terms of getting out before the media, but there may be other things in the future. So this is all low-hanging fruit, and we can start on all or a lot of these different things, but in some cases, some of this isn't probably just a once and done as well, is all I guess I wanted to, my observation.
Mark, I think, are you sort of suggesting beyond what is needed for Victoria's piece, what is the group's priority? Because not everything can be done at once. Right.
And so, certainly what we're going to work on immediately is helping get some information back to the subgroup so that piece can be developed for Victoria. And
right,
that's step one. I think that's pretty clear.
And I think I heard you identify another potential focus area for the subgroup is to look at options for surveys and to sort of work that piece to get sort of a draft survey tool.
In part, and go ahead, please.
There's several things we can do at the same time.
Okay, great.
We can look into how to get a website built. I mean, we don't have to just stop everything. That we could be doing research on that now. And if we can do it in a way where it's not coming out of our 25K budget, we can identify that and then let you know.
Absolutely. And I guess what I was just trying to convey, and sorry, Heen, I see you have your hand up the old school way there as well. I guess what I really wanted to convey is, assuming that the subgroup is willing to continue meeting at whatever schedule works for you, I think just probably some continuous feedback back to the district from that group or through the co-leads would be great. Because there's a lot of things, and I agree with what Rhonda was saying, that a lot of these things can happen and there's other elements that can be going on. This sort of a broad list, and that there's probably going to be additional steps.
Right.
I think, Rhonda, what we could do is, we'll be in contact, just in terms of, what are the next steps, what are specific questions that we'll have, and to an extent, we need to share that information back with the steering committee, to get to some of these answers. We can do that.
Absolutely, and what you need from other resources of the steering committee to do or to get information, to make sure you're putting that stuff out. So we're all carrying our fair share of researching or bringing information to you. The way Jesus said, hey, listen, I've got the languages. These are some of the things. If we want to start to look at what about translations or whatever that process is. Rhonda, if you are willing, if you let us know as well when there are steering committee subgroup meetings, if they are open for other participants to join, let us know. Okay. Because we all need to be carrying weight with this, right, to get this outreach up and off the ground.
Right. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Any other comments before we close? You guys have a green light and start to look at what those things are going to start to cost and put together. And I feel really good about that. Thank you to the district has come back, identified a budget, and let's see how we can use it wisely and spread it to be most effective for the benefit of our community. So yay. And I want to take this opportunity. You all saw that we got a letter. Hien has a wonderful opportunity to be able to move forward in her career, to build an opportunity to be an even stronger leader. in the community and in our education environment. We will meet with you one more time, Ian, before we let you go in July, but wanted to tell you right now up front, your participation is so valued. Your voice is so clear, and it is so strong and has helped strengthen us. So everyone, it will be our loss, but ultimately it will be our gain as a community when you get your doctorate and all of those things for us. So we appreciate you. Thank you so very much.
Yes.
I don't like attention, but I'm getting better at receiving it. And I just appreciate everyone's kindness and just your compassion and love of service. I mean, service is my life. And to just meet to meet people who have like-minded goals and a vision for our community is, it keeps me hopeful and keeps me optimistic. So I appreciate you all. And I didn't expect this, but Pat, gosh, you got me. Yeah, I hope to participate as much as I can in the future. Just not being able to attend steering committee meetings because classes. So thank you.
We do appreciate you, and we know that your voice is out there. We won't fail to heed your sage comments and advice. And please, everyone, we need more folks from the community here. And so let's open those doors. Let's open that opportunity and bring them in so that we have these voices. So thank you so very much. Everyone, please be safe. Please remain healthy. And I'm so blessed to see all of your faces and hear your voices again. I am difficult to contact right now. I am home on Mondays and Tuesdays, and I'm working at the coast. I'm getting a chance to have some really nice air, but I'm working with young children at a music camp, and we're trying to abide by 5 different agencies' rules about COVID prevention, right? So it's been a hard, but it is worthwhile. But I'm going to be leaving in 2 hours. I'm going to take a little break and leaving in 2 hours to head back to 3 hours away to get back to my job. So thank you all and have a wonderful night. Bill, are you ready to give us an adjournment?
We are adjourned, ladies and gentlemen. Pat, thank you so much for your leadership. Ian, thank you so much for your leadership. All of you, as Ian said, this work is service work, and it's hard, and it's there's a lot to it, and there's a lot of back and forth, and there's a lot of ideas. Democracies are messy, and we are part of that. And as I've said to my kids a million times, there are people in this world doing great things this very minute. Be one of them. You are one of them. Thank you so much for all your service.
Thank you all, and good night.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Drive safely, Pat.
Good night.
Night.